So, now this is the configuration, suppose this could be a gasoline engine, this could be a diesel engine, it is just for that matter. The turbocharger does not differentiate. So, let us just forget about what kind of engine is this. Exhaust gas is coming out. Okay. So, now the exhaust gas is coming out and this is a small turbine. So, turbine will start rotating and the exhaust gas goes out. The only thing that is done is that the heat and the pressure energy of the exhaust gas is converted into mechanical energy. And now this compressor starts rotating. The air comes in, compressor compresses it, it is a centrifugal compressor, it compresses it. So, pressure and temperature increases, then this hot gas comes in here and then passes through intercooler. This red portion shows hot temperature. When it passes through the intercooler, air to air heat exchange takes place and the compressed air will cool, right, and this cooler high pressure air then goes into the intake system. That is how it works. So, basically these two components are increased. So, this is how the cross section of a radial flow turbine looks like. So, you have this cut sections, etc., etc. This is the inlet and from here the exit takes place. Okay. You know how a turbine works. So, basically in a turbine you are what you are doing, you have high pressure and high temperature and you allow the air to flow through nozzles, and when you allow to flow through the nozzles, then what happens, the velocity will increase, they will transfer their momentum to the moving blades. Okay. So, in very simple way, this is what is a turbocharger. There is a turbine and there is a compressor and it is connected on the same shaft. Just a very simple analogy I will give you, you must have studied this. What is this? Jet engine. In the jet engine what you are doing? You are taking the air in, it is passing through the compressor, okay, and here it gets compressed and then it passes through the combustion chamber where the fuel is injected, temperature and pressure increases and then it passes through the turbine and then hot exhaust gas goes out. The power produced by the turbine is used by the compressor for compressing. Okay. Here turbocharger is everything minus a jet engine minus the combustor. Here the hot exhaust gas comes to the turbine, goes out, some power is produced, you are on the same shaft and basically here there is one stream, and in case of turbocharger there are two separate streams which do not mix with each other. So, this is the turbocharger. So, you see here this is the exhaust, hot exhaust coming into the turbine casing and transferring its momentum and heat to the turbine blades. Turbine starts rotating and the exhaust gas goes out. At no point in time the hot gases mix with the intake charge. The only interaction between these two is transfer of mechanical energy. So, it generates some mechanical power, mechanical energy which is given to the compressor using the shaft, and here the colder air at atmospheric pressure, intake air comes in, it is compressed, and high pressure intake air, high pressure high temperature intake air goes to the engine via intercooler. Now, I told you there could be many different designs. It is not necessary that I only use centrifugal compressor. There are many designs. Historically, people have developed all kinds of designs of compressors for turbocharging applications. For example, you must have seen this is a eccentric and these are the sliding vanes. Okay? So, this is vane type compressor, sliding vane type compressor. Air comes in and it is compressed and at high pressure it leaves out from here. Okay? Then this is Roots blower. Two blowers are moving in opposite direction and they compress the air. Okay? Then Lysholm compressor, this is something like a screw type, well earlier cousin of the screw type, and this is the screw type compressor. So, there are many designs of the compressors which were used, but most of these compressors have lot of maintenance issues, and therefore, with time it was generally agreed that for most of the IC engine applications since the RPM is very fast, it is always a good idea to go for centrifugal compressor, which has minimum maintenance. Okay. So, this is the centrifugal compressor that is used actually. So, basically what you are doing is you are imparting the momentum to the intake air. So, first you have compressor blades. So, you are basically imparting the energy. So, you are accelerating the flow velocity then increases, right, and then it passes through some kind of a diffuser. So, that kinetic energy is then converted into pressure potential the pressure energy. So, and this high pressure air is collected from here. Okay. This is where you are imparting this is the sectional view and this is the front view. So, this is the rotating part. Okay. Here you can see the air molecules are accelerated and this is the diffuser in which the velocity is reduced and converted into pressure. This is exactly opposite of nozzle, what happens in case of a turbine. So, this is again this is a real cut section of a turbocharger and this is actually cut in like sectional view, and you can see here that the exhaust gas is actually coming in here, okay, and it passes through the turbine, okay, and it goes out like this, and then the power is generated. So, these are on the same shaft, okay, and you have to make sure that the gas do not pass through the bearing to the other side. So, this has to be sealed properly, but at the same time you have to lubricate it properly also, because this operates at a very fast speed. Okay. And then here you see the air after the filter, the air comes in, and then here I told you this is accelerated, okay, and then here the diffuser. So, the pressure is increased, all the kinetic energy is converted into pressure energy, and then it goes out. Okay. So, this is how a turbocharger section looks like. These are same things shown in different manner. This is exhaust coming in, exhaust goes out centrally, intake air comes in centrally and goes out radially. This is shown here also. So, a turbocharger looks like a centrifugal pump. Hot exhaust gases flow through the combustion chamber to the turbine wheel. The gases are heated and they expand as they leave the turbine. It is not the speed of or the force of the gases that causes the turbine wheel to turn, but the expansion of the gases against the turbine. So, it is basically the expansion and the heat that generates the mechanical power in the turbine of the turbocharger. Turbine's main advantage over mechanically driven superchargers is that it does not drain the power from the engine. So, no power is taken from the engine shaft. So, basically you are able to generate compressed air free of cost, no cost to the engine. Okay. So, this is how a section looks like, cutaway section, and this is how a full turbocharger looks like from outside. Exhaust comes in, exhaust goes out, intake air comes in, intake air goes out, and then outside you have these kind of control systems which I am going to discuss. Okay. So, this is how a full turbocharger looks like. So, most automobile compressors are basically centrifugal pump based compressors for the reasons that I mentioned to you, because of the cost, size, reliability, efficiency. Okay. Cost of the centrifugal compressor is also very low, size can be really small, maintenance can be very less compared to Roots blower or other types. Reliability is extremely high, efficiency is also pretty good. Okay. Now, I would like to just bring about a very special case. Of course, it is not very relevant, but just for historical reasons I want to tell you a very special case of a car. Okay. Diesel engine, it is no problem, because diesel engine you have compressed air, you take the air in, you are anyway going to inject the fuel, it does not matter. But suppose you have a carburetor. So, carburetor, where do you install the carburetor? Should you install the carburetor before the turbocharger? Should you install after the turbocharger? So, this is one question that was a big issue. I would just like to, for the historical reason, just for the understanding, of course, it is not very relevant today, because carburetor engines are not used anymore. Okay. So, this is just for the historical reasons, and just for the sake of understanding this concept can be used in other applications. So, turbocharger installation, particularly for gasoline fueled carburetor engine, only from historical perspective 1980 and earlier, a big challenge, where do you install? Should you install, this is air cleaner, this is turbocharger, this is the engine. Should you install the carburetor in between, or should you install the carburetor before the turbocharger? Where do you install? So, two configurations are possible. Here it is after the turbocharger is first, then carburetor. Here the carburetor is first, so and then the turbocharger. Now, here you see what you are compressing here, just the air, and then this air pressure increases, and that high pressure air goes into the carburetor, and carburetor works on the principle of vacuum. So, now there will be a big problem, because now the carburetor should be designed such that it can withstand the kind of pressure which are generated by turbocharger, right. So, carburetor design changes, right. In this case you are preparing the fuel air mixture in. So, what you are dealing with here in the turbocharger? A mixture of fuel and air, and then it is being given lot of kinetic energy. So, what happens is, when you do that, fuel separates from air. So, you will form the mixture here in the carburetor, but it will separate. So, there will be some issues. So, these are the two issues. This is figure A, design B. Let us see, turbocharger can be installed between the air cooler and the carburetor as shown here, or it can be shown, it can be used in between the carburetor and the engine as shown here. Let us see. So, this is the first design, this is the second design. Each of this method has their own disadvantages. So, if the air, compressed air is forced through the carburetor, as in this case, the fuel pressure must be high enough so that fuel can enter the flow. If the fuel is not pressurized, fuel that is coming to the compressor, to the carburetor is not pressurized, then what will happen? Air will start passing in through the carburetor. So, rather than fuel coming in, it will be the air that will go out. So, this will create a lot of problem. This means that the carburetor and the fuel line must be able to hold pressure without any leaks. So, this is one special precaution that you need to take. In this case, if the fuel and air is mixed and then compressed as shown in figure B, the mixture can easily separate because of the momentum. Moreover, in this case, the carburetor will have to be mounted far away from the engine, which would cause many problems in cold weather conditions. So, what you need to do, if you just want to avoid the separation, you have to move it far away. If you move it far away, then suppose you are in Ladakh region or Kashmir in winters, the distance will be so large that the combustible mixture will never be able to reach the engine, the fuel will condense. Okay. So, this will have cold starting problems. Diesel trucks are, most of the diesel trucks that are operated are always turbocharged, and with diesel engine these problems do not exist, because the turbocharged engine, air is inducted into the engine independent of the fuel system, which is directly injected in the cylinder. So, in case of a diesel engine it is no problem, in case of a port fuel injection system also it is no problem, in case of a gasoline direct injection engine it is no problem. And if you look at the modern diesel engines or modern gasoline engines, so modern gasoline engines use two types of technologies today. One is the multi-point port fuel injection, the second technology is gasoline direct injection. So, it is no problem. Diesel engines use several technologies, it could be mechanical fuel injection system, but again this is direct injection, it could be common rail direct injection system. Okay. So, all these direct injection systems are, fuel is injected directly in the cylinder, so it is no problem as well. So, whatever I mentioned to you here, the problem related to installation was the problem of the past. Okay. Now, in modern engines this problem really does not exist. Now, what kind of a configurations are possible with supercharging and turbocharging? Let us see, this figure is a very nice figure, and I think you need to give little attention to this. So, here you have the engine, okay, and here you have a compressor, and this is connected via some kind of a gear drive. Okay. So, you have the engine running and this is the compressor and air is coming in here in the compressor, high pressure, high temperature goes into the engine. What is this? It is a supercharger. Yes, it is a supercharger. Here you see you have a compressor. So, the air is compressed and that goes in, exhaust goes out through a turbine and then exhaust goes out and both are connected on the same shaft. What is this? It is a turbocharger. Now, here you see you have an engine and you have a small supercharger and then in addition you have a turbocharger. So, this is called engine driven compressor and turbocharger. So, engine is driving the compressor and then you have a turbocharger, right. You can have another configuration where you instead of one you have two compressors and two turbines, low pressure turbine driving the low pressure compressor, high pressure turbine driving the high pressure compressor. Which one is high pressure, C1 or C2? C2 and T2. Okay. So, this is called two stage turbocharging and this is obviously used in the engines where we require higher amount of boost, 4 bar, 3 bar, such as ship engines, big huge engines where you need more amount of intake air pressure. Here you see this is a very strange thing, you have a compressor which is being driven by a turbine. So, what is this? Turbocharger, and here you have another turbine and then here you have a gearbox. So, that means that this is turbocharger, but here more mechanical power is being produced. This mechanical power is augmenting the power produced by the engine. This is called turbocharging with turbo compounding. So, now the power instead of being sucked from the engine, it is being provided to the engine by this extra turbine. Okay. And of course, what is this? Compressor and turbine, and here you have a heat exchanger. So, this is turbocharging with intercooling. Okay. So, these kind of configurations are possible. Multi-stage turbocharging is done so that the turbine sizes and the compressor sizes are reasonably manageable. For large engines, the turbine could be really very big. Now, here you see this is a general configuration, air is taken in, passes through an air filter, then you have a low pressure compressor connected to a low pressure turbine, and then you have a intercooler where the temperature is reduced, then it goes to high pressure compressor which is again connected to a high pressure turbine via a shaft, and then again you have another intercooler, temperature is reduced, this goes into the intake plenum or intake manifold, from where it goes to different cylinders at high pressure, engine is supplied with high pressure air, then exhaust goes out and part of the exhaust passes through EGR cooler and goes into the intake. So, this is the EGR system, I will talk about it, I have not taught you the EGR system. Some of the exhaust gas is recirculated because you want to control the emission of oxides of nitrogen. Okay. The remaining exhaust then goes through the turbine, and then from here it goes to the low pressure turbine, and then once it is passed, it is left, it is all the energy is stepped out by the compressors, then it goes to the particulate filter and then it goes to exhaust system. So, turbocharging allows a greater mass of the air to enter the combustion chamber and more fuels to be utilized. This leads to greater power output in comparison with the naturally aspirated engine. Turbocharging produces a higher performance yield while maintaining the same displacement and increases the engine's low end torque. So, one of the best thing that is done is it increases the low end torque. The torque at low speed increases substantially because of turbocharging. And you know that all of you young guys, when you drive a car or a scooter, how do you feel power? So, when you are on a red light, you want to be the first one, right? And how does it happen? So, once this is fine, I mean adrenal rush for young people is very normal and you should know that. So, how do you meet that demand? So, when you are at a red light, your engine is operating at low speed, and how you can give it more power feel? You can give it more power feel by giving it higher torque. So, then you design your engine such that it delivers very high torque at low speeds. That is when the power of the feeling of power comes in. High end torque really does not so important, it is not so important. Low end torque is what gives the feeling of power. You can feel the acceleration that you are accelerating. Okay. So, this is what can be given by supercharging or turbocharging. Okay. So, for example, I will give you a simple example. All of you must have sat in Tata Nano, right? What do you feel? What is the first feeling? Belgadi hai. It drives very slow, its acceleration is really slow, but if you put a turbocharger on it or supercharger on it, it will run like Ferrari because of this. Okay, its acceleration will increase. So, conversely, for a specific engine output, the displacement can be reduced or downsized. This is another very important concept that is coming in nowadays. Downsizing, I would just like to elaborate, spend 2 minutes on it. See, you have an engine for a particular application, you need 40 kilowatt power. So, one idea will be that you make a 1 liter engine which will give you same power output, right. The second idea can be that instead of taking a 1 liter engine, how about taking a 0.6 liter engine and put turbocharging in it, right. You can do that, and once you do that, what you do is that the engine size which was 185 kilograms has now reduced to 100 kilograms. That means what? That means that you can design the car such that you can put one extra passenger in your car, and you will not be, the engine has to carry itself also on the vehicle. So, you will be spending lesser energy in carrying the engine. So, now the effort today is to downsize. Downsize means somehow reduce the engine size, pack the same amount of energy, and the package smaller in terms of weight and volume. If the volume is small, you will be able to do other things inside your bonnet very easily, right. So, that is why you see the earlier engines used to be very bulky, but if you look at any powerful SUV and you open the bonnet, you will find that the motor, the engine is very, very small, because now everybody is going for turbocharging, and that has led to downsizing. It is a very, very important concept. Downsizing not only saves in terms of weight, you are putting lesser, you are using lesser amount of material in making the engine. Material is energy, right, and downsize the engines are also more efficient compared to naturally aspirated engines. Okay. So, downsizing reduces fuel consumption, and consequently it also reduces CO emissions. The reason for this fuel saving, why it is more efficient, is that the engine is operating at higher BMEP in engine map area with higher specific loads. See, I told you that if you do the boosting, your peak pressures are higher. You are starting at 1.5 bar, going up to 30 bar, then going up to 100 bar. What is brake mean effective pressure? Brake mean effective pressure is average pressure which can be thought to be applied over the entire cycle, right. So, now if you are operating at higher pressure, you are operating at higher BMEP, and if you are operating at higher BMEP, if you look at the very, very fundamentals of the first year level of first course of the IC engines, you know that there is a efficiency versus load curve or BMEP curve, which is like this. So, that means higher BMEP you operate, more efficient your engine will be. So, for the same fuel, since you are burning it at higher BMEP, it will be burned with a greater efficiency. That is why these engines are more efficient. Okay. I will give you a simple example of my own. I bought a naturally aspirated 1.5 liter EcoSport, which gives me 12 kilometers per liter. There is another cousin of that, same model, same exterior, same, but the engine is 1 liter turbocharged gasoline. It gives an average of 15, 20%, 25% higher. Why? Because it is turbocharged, and mine is 1.5 liter and that is 1 liter, and it is far more powerful than 1.5 liter, because its mine is naturally aspirated. Had it been turbocharged, it would give me more power and more thrill to drive, right. So when you buy your car, keep these facts in mind. Okay. So, you have greater fuel efficiency in case of turbocharged engines. You have lower CO emissions because you are operating at higher temperatures and higher pressures. So, turbocharging, it not only improves the fuel efficiency, it also reduces the HC emissions, because now the engine is operating at higher temperatures and pressure. So, it can lead to 14% higher lower HC, 13% CO, 8% NOx. I mean, numbers are not important, but what is important is that CO, HC and NOx emissions, all of the emissions are low. The fuel efficiency is better if you are using turbocharging, and the reason for this is that a low compressor engine that runs satisfactorily on low load, low gasoline engine is ideal for turbocharging, just like your small car engine. Okay. A smaller displacement engine is more efficient, it burns less fuel, gives smaller amount of combustion byproduct. Turbocharging back pressure on the engine exhaust system during periods of full power and load, this increases the temperature and pressure of the exhaust gas, leading to more complete burning in the exhaust manifold, and that is why most of the emissions actually reduce. Turbocharging is basically acting like a in a normal engine, exhaust is going out freely. Now you put a turbine, so it will create some kind of a pressure on the engine because it is a obstruction in any way. So, it creates back pressure. Back pressure means that now the engine has to work harder to push the combustion products. So, it will run hotter, right, and then once it runs hotter, all these hydrocarbons and carbon monoxide will burn actually. Okay. Because the intake manifold and carburetor work under pressure instead of vacuum, the turbocharged engine maintains more precise air fuel mixture in each engine cylinder. This is applicable for the engines that I discussed 1980 and earlier. This is not applicable now because carburetors are not used. Okay. Turbocharger controls, it is very important that you control the turbocharging. The actions of the turbocharger must be controlled in order to avoid high exhaust emissions and knocking. Now, if you remember first level course of IC engines on spark ignition combustion, when does knocking take place in a gasoline engine? At the end of the compression stroke, when the flame front is about to move and you have already achieved the auto ignition conditions, and when you are having higher pressure, those auto ignition conditions will be achieved further earlier. So, that means if you blindly turbocharge your engine, gasoline engine, the possibility of knocking will actually increase. Okay. So, you have, and knocking is not something that is completely desirable, it is completely undesirable. So, you have to avoid getting into red zone. Okay. And for doing that, what you have to do, you have to turbocharge to the extent where you do not walk into that red zone. So, that means turbocharging you want to do, you want to take the advantage, but not get into landmine area where the knocking will start, right. So, in order to do that, you should be able to precisely control the boosting. If the boosting is not controlled precisely, you will end up knocking your engine. Okay. So, that is why controls are extremely important. So, the maximum boost pressure of the turbocharger must be controlled, otherwise the higher compression and the power potential could damage the engine because of the detonation. Okay. There are three general ways of controlling the turbocharger system or controlling the knocking. First is, if you can change the amount of boost, you want to control the boost, so you should be able to change the boost and control it to the level that you want, that is first. Second is that if you can somehow cool the compressed mixture and control its temperature, then also knocking can be controlled. Remember, when does the knocking happen? When the last part of the charge in a spark ignition engine achieves high pressure and high temperature. If you can avoid high pressure by changing the boost, you can avoid it. If you can cool the charge, intake charge, then you can avoid the high temperature, both of these things. And then the third thing can be that suppose you can, if you can alter the spark timing, retard it, then also you can avoid the knocking. So, these are the three ways in which the knocking can be avoided. So, now if you have to develop controls for turbocharging or boosting control, it has to take into account these three factors. Okay. So, first is let us talk about first boost control. How do we control the boost? So, boost control can either limit the amount of exhaust gas reaching the turbine or vent off some of the compressed air or air fuel mixture before it reaches the combustion chamber. So, now you see if you want to control the boost, there is a turbine, there is a compressor. So, two things you can do, either you limit the amount of exhaust gas that is passing through the turbine. If you reduce, obviously the speed of the compressor will also reduce and boost will reduce, that is one thing, or you allow all the exhaust to pass through the turbine and vent off some of the compressed air, and then the boosting will be controlled. Are you following me or not? So, there are two mechanisms which are called, one is called wastegate, the other one is called blow off valve. So, wastegate does the first thing, wastegate controls the amount of exhaust gas reaching the turbine, and blow off valve is just like a safety valve. If there is a limit that is set, the moment the pressure is high, it will open and vent off the compressed air, and then the moment the pressure becomes normal within limit, it will close. So, it is like a spring loaded safety valve, so almost like that. Okay. Now, let us look at the first wastegate. What is the wastegate? So, you see this is the compressor and this is the turbine. The exhaust is coming in from here and going out from here. Okay. In the compressor part, the fresh charge is coming in, rotating here, and compressed air is going out here. Now, suppose you want to control the boost. So, what you do is you have some kind of a piping connection here, and that piping connection you bring here, and this kind of a wastegate connection you make here. Understand this very carefully. What is done is, this is a wastegate, okay, a mechanism, and what it does is it bypasses some of the exhaust gas. So, now lesser quantity of exhaust will pass through here once it is open. Okay. How does it work? Suppose the boost here increases, this is the mechanism, there is a spring here and there is a slit. So, basically this is like a cylinder, okay, and there is a stopper here, this stopper opens this opening. Okay. So, now what happens is, this is fixed slit, once the pressure increases, this piston is pushed. Once the pressure is more than desired, that pressure will be applied here in this chamber and this piston is going to be pushed. This is fixed. Once this is pushed, then this will open, and once this opens, the exhaust will always try to find the path of least resistance. Here it is facing the resistance because of the moving blades. So, now the exhaust, instead of passing, some of the exhaust instead of passing through the turbine, it will pass directly into the exhaust manifold. Once it passes through the exhaust manifold, then what will happen? The quantity of exhaust passing through the turbine blades will reduce, as a result its speed will reduce, as a result this pressure will fall down, this pressure will fall down, this pressure will reduce, and then the spring will force it back, and this gap will be closed. So, whenever the boost pressure is high, this wastegate will become effective. Whenever the boost pressure is within reasonable limit, this will remain closed. Okay? And you can see this is almost similar to what I showed you in the earlier figure, there was a separate piping arrangement and all that. So, this is similar to that. So, the wastegate reacts to the intake manifold pressure and controls the amount of exhaust gas reaching the turbine wheel. Okay. Wastegates are normally controlled by diaphragm link. This is the diaphragm link. So, this is the diaphragm here, and this is the spring loaded piston that moves this way or that way. The diaphragm is exposed to the intake manifold pressure. So, intake pressure is brought through a pipe to this. So, diaphragm is now exposed. When the pressure reaches a certain level, the diaphragm moves far enough so that waste gate route exhaust gas directly into the muffler and bypasses the turbines. The exhaust gas will pass. Okay. So, is this clear? Waste gate, how does it work? The second control system is turbocharger control, is the blow off valve. So, this is the blow off valve here. So, here you see you have a air cleaner, is a turbocharger, this is a blow off valve. You can have carburetor, you can have diesel engine, it does not matter, this is inconsequential. So, basically the turbocharger, the air is coming in, air is being compressed, and here you see this is like a spring loaded valve. The moment the pressure increases beyond a certain level, this valve will open and allow the exhaust to allow the intake air to go out until the pressure reduces to desired level. Once you have attained the desired level of pressure, this will close and the engine will be supplied with that pressure air. So, the valve can be operated in different ways depending on what needs to be controlled. The valve is to control the maximum boost pressure, then it is a simple spring loaded unit. When the boost pressure reaches a certain level, the spring tension is overcome and some of the boost pressure is allowed to escape. If the turbocharger is compressing the combustible fuel air mixture, then the mixture be vented back into the turbocharger. So, this is like if you are just the air, you do not worry about the collecting the air back, but suppose you have a carburetor here, then you are venting fuel air mixture. So, that should be put back, that should not be allowed to go into the atmosphere, because that will be wastage of the fuel. Okay. So, if a blow off valve is meant to control the exhaust emissions, then it is to be operated by intake manifold vacuum. Okay. The second mechanism, so this is about controlling the pressure of the intake air. The second idea was to control the temperature of the intake air in order to avoid the detonation. So, that is done by mixture cooling. So, two methods are used to cool the compressed air mixture before it reaches the combustion chamber. So, first of course is intercooler, use of intercoolers. Intercoolers are used between the turbocharger and the engine, and the compressed mixture passes through a radiator core which can contain water, air or a special chemical depending on the application. So, basically it is some kind of a heat exchanger, you compress the air, hot air is then it will release the heat to the other fluid and it will become colder and then it will be supplied to the engine. The second thing that you can do is the intercoolers require extra space and special plumbing connections, but they are very efficient. Okay. Intercooling is often used in racing cars and also used in diesel trucks. Okay. The second thing is that you can inject water. So, once you inject water, water is a very high latent heat fluid, right. So, once you inject water in the hot intake air, what will happen? It will evaporate, and once it evaporates, it will reduce the temperature of the intake air. Okay. Water injection systems cool the compressed mixture by spraying a mist of water or water and special chemicals into the intake manifold. So, either water or special chemicals are injected in the form of a mist into the intake high pressure intake system, intake air system, and then these droplets will evaporate and cool down the mixture. So, this is another method. So, this injection can be powered by an electrical pump or by the boost pressure. So, this is the second mechanism, okay, by which you can control the temperature of the intake air in order to control the knocking or detonation. Third method is spark timing. So, spark timing, you see, in a spark timing, if you want to avoid knocking, always you have to retard. Retard means bring it closer to the top dead center. The retarding the spark timing can control knocking or detonation by lowering the peak temperature of the combustion. Spark timing control can be done either by mechanical means or by electronically controlled mechanism. So, mechanical operation, you have a special diaphragm of the ignition distributor is exposed to intake manifold pressure. So, when the boost pressure increases, this diaphragm moves, and you have a mechanism by which when the diaphragm moves, it is going to retard the ignition timing. So, it is a simple mechanism mostly used in mechanically operated engines with distributor system. Okay. In electronic operation, a sensor in the engine detects the detonation, So, in electronic engine operation, basically you have a ECU and you have a knocking sensor. That knocking sensor picks up the knocking, tells it to the ECU, and then ECU retards the spark timing. Okay. So, this is done electronically using solid state circuitry, integrated circuits using ECU. Okay. So, this is more modern system. All right. So, this is all about turbochargers. Let us briefly talk about superchargers. So, supercharger is this is the engine and it is connected to, this is the engine crankshaft, this is the pulley, and here you have the compressor. So, there is no turbine here, because turbine in turbocharger is used only for producing mechanical power. Here you are drawing mechanical power from the engine shaft. So, now here you see the turbochargers are very expensive. Why they are more expensive? Turbochargers are less expensive, superchargers are more expensive. Why? Because in turbochargers there is no need for any gearbox. Here you see this is the gearbox, it is complicated, gears manufacturing is more complicated, and this is the turbine part. Turbine part is very similar to turbocharger. So, superchargers are actually much more expensive than turbochargers, and you can see the size. This size is definitely much more bigger than turbochargers. So, supercharger size is also quite big comparatively. So, here the system is that you have a drive pulley. Why do you need this drive gear or gearbox? Because you have to increase the speed to again very high levels, and the engine does not operate at such high levels. So, gearbox is required to increase the speed, otherwise the centrifugal compressor will not start compressing the air. Okay. And then you see here you have lot of internal gears, and then they have to be dipped in the oil, and then this is impeller gear, and so impeller gear is here. So there is a big gear, and this is the impeller gear, this is the internal mechanism. A supercharger is very much similar to turbocharger, with a compressor used to forcing high pressure air into the engine. Major difference being that in the case of supercharger, the engine runs the turbocharger, whereas in turbocharger the energy of the escaping exhaust gas or emissions which otherwise goes waste is used to run the compressor. So, you already know this. With more compressed air, more oxygen and fuel reaches the combustion chamber, hence more power generated. This also I have already informed you. In general, superchargers and turbochargers have the same arrangement, but have a set of characteristics that distinguish the two from each other. So, here also there are many types of superchargers. There could be a reciprocating supercharger with these kind of valves. Okay. There could be lobe type supercharger, there could be vane type supercharger. So, there are many different designs of superchargers that are available. The term supercharger refers to air pressurizing pump that is driven by the engine itself. Engine driven superchargers were never extensively used for passenger cars. Okay, they are not used for passenger cars. Two general types of supercharger, one is positive displacement type, which is this one, and the second one is centrifugal type. So, positive displacement type include reciprocating, lobe or vane type. So, these are called positive displacement because every revolution pumps the same volume of the air. They compress the air by taking in large volumes and forcing them into smaller areas. So, they take large volume and physically compress into smaller volumes and then exit. The second is centrifugal pumps. I think this is similar to what we have already discussed. It contains an impeller that looks more like a bladed fan, and then it rotates at high energy, air is pulled in at the center of the impeller, and then you speed up. So, basically you provide the kinetic energy, and the air is thrown outwards on the blade by centrifugal force, and then it passes through diffuser. So, the fast moving air then enters a diffuser passage, where the cross section is suddenly increased, and once you increase, the pressure gets converted into the temperature, the velocity gets converted into pressure, and that is how you get high pressure air coming out. So, this is the diffuser, this is the diffuser passage here, and the outlet is high pressure air. So, this is very similar to the compressor that is used in turbochargers. So, let us compare these two, turbochargers and compressor. So, this is the general shape of turbochargers and this is the general shape of supercharger. Turbocharger does the same job as supercharger, force more end to cars engines. However, the turbo uses a turbine and not connected to the crankshaft. Instead of the engine, the turbo gets driven by cars exhaust gases. Purpose of both is to raise the density of the charge before it enters the cylinder, is to raise the power output, is to increase the volumetric efficiency. So, one of the main functions of the turbocharger and supercharger is to increase the volumetric efficiency. In this case, the volumetric efficiency will definitely be more than 100%. Okay. So, since the utilization of air is what is going to determine the power output of the engine, and the engine must be able to take in as much air as possible. So, please note the following points for supercharging and turbocharging of engine. Supercharging increases the power output of the engine definitely, but it does not increase the fuel consumption. It is more efficient than naturally aspirated. Engine should be designed to withstand the higher forces due to supercharging. Okay. If you are taking a naturally aspirated engine, you cannot take the full advantage of turbocharging and supercharging, because it is not designed to withstand high forces. Okay. The increased pressure and temperature as a result of supercharging may lead to detonation. So, this is the red zone. You have to avoid getting into this by applying suitable controls. Okay. Therefore, the fuel must be used to with a better anti-knocking characteristics. So, you should try to use, if you are using a turbocharged car, you should always try to go for higher octane number fuel in order to avoid knocking. Okay. Certain percentage of power in turbocharging is consumed from the engine itself in compressing, sorry, this is supercharging. In supercharging is consumed from the engine itself in compressing the air, which leads to power loss, not the turbocharging, this is supercharging. So, basically exhaust gas is driving this fan, in this case the power is being consumed from the engine itself.